Welcome to the Popcorn Talk Network, for the online broadcast network that features movie discussion, news, and interviews. Press 1. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
I'm opening. We have an eye, sort of a nostril, 2 teeth. One of the teeth has a small cavity. Close call, folks, but I think we got here just in time.
Presented by Maria Menounos and Kevin Undergaro. This is Anatomy of a Movie. In-depth discussions and breakdowns of various movie titles. And now that you've seen the movie, let the dissection begin.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. This music can only mean one thing. Zoolander 2 is getting put on the slab here at Anatomy of a Movie. And we've got a lot to talk about. But before we fully get into things, I want to kind of reiterate, I did a State of the Union a little while ago. And, you know, to give you kind of a quick thing, we took a look at all the fan comments. We talked internally about ways we can improve Anatomy of a Movie for you guys. And one of the cool parts is we're going to be bringing a lot more photos, some videos, things like that, just to bring in a more visual element. No, that does not mean that if you're listening to us on iTunes that you don't get the same experience. Our entire rundown, as well as the photos, are available to download as part of the show description. So just click that link, download it, and you'll be able to kind of see. And again, it just kind of, it doesn't debilitate the conversation. So if you can't for some reason see them, it's okay. You'll still find it enjoyable. Hopefully this just enhances it. And the other thing is, you know, we've kind of gone in and we want to focus on really the process of making movies, because whether or not you like the movie, you know, and you'll hear me say in a little bit, Zoolander 2 was not my favorite, but regardless, the process of making it is equally hard from movie to movie, and that's what we're here to highlight. So I'm your host, Phil Svitek, COO of AfterBuzz TV Networks and Popcorn Talk, as well as a feature film editor, joined alongside Marisa Serafini.
Hello, everyone.
She is the senior content producer of AfterBuzz TV Networks and Popcorn Talk, as well as a graphic design expert.
A little bit, yeah.
So, and today we're missing, Dimitri Panos was supposed to join us, so there's various bits that I'll pull in from his research. Unfortunately, he's not here today to kind of discuss it with us, but nonetheless, feel free to show him love at DMovies1701 on Twitter. All right, as we always do, let's start with let's start with overall thoughts. Marisa, go ahead.
You know, I really enjoyed Zoolander 1, and then going into Zoolander 2, it was really fun to know that these characters are back, ridiculous, over the top, fashionable still. And it's a movie that you're going there to have fun. If you're going to like really analyze it and compare it to the world, you might not enjoy it. So you have to go in, you know, being very open-minded, maybe empty-minded. But it was overall fun to watch people, these guys coming back together, being ridiculous. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I actually had some good laughs out of it.
Fair enough. For me, it wasn't without laughs, and obviously the team that we'll talk about that made this, they know how to write funny, you know? And for me, one of the best scenes was the car scene with Derek and Derek Jr., and it was honestly one of the funniest bits I've seen. And so that's what kind of irked me, was because they had those elements, and I knew they were capable of pulling off something special, especially, you know, they've proven that with Zoolander, the original. And Ben Stiller in general just has such a great history that we'll definitely talk about it. You know, for me, Secret Life of Walter Mitty is amazing. Heavyweights and the original Zoolander. So there's quite a bit of range there that he's capable of. And so I was expecting something great for this. And the problem with me was they didn't stick to what they did well. I think...
in the first film.
In the first film, it works in this way. Number one, they try to be too much not like the original, which I think is what Anchorman 2 suffered from. But also at the same time, they try to stick to what they knew from the original, and I think they just pushed that to its limit. The fact of them trying to explain his looks and having facial recognition and all those things, whenever you try to explain, that's explaining a joke. The same thing with Sting. In the original, it's just so irreverent. Like, Sting is a hero of mine. I don't listen to his movies, but he's a hero. And now making him his father, I didn't need that side of it. I would have just preferred them irreverent. I think it became too Da Vinci Code-esque. If they were just, the whole plot to me could have been two formal models that are now washed up and trying to regain back into the business.
Yeah, and I think that's the overall story that they were trying to go for. Granted, they're so far removed from the first world that we were a part of 15 years ago now. And it was just, they tried to come back with a fairly serious story, maybe have these guys mature a little bit. They're out of the industry that they so knew and loved. But I think the overall goal that they were trying to go for was serious, and then it ended up just being like the first movie, just ridiculous.
Yeah, and so in talking about the development of all of this, it's one of those things. It'd be one thing to say, oh, they made a sequel because they needed to make a sequel. They made a sequel because they had a passion for it and they wanted to see a second one be made. If you look at the history of the original, it didn't do that well in the box office.
No.
And so, as Ben Stiller says, it's very easy to make a sequel when it's like Transformers and it just brings in $1 gazillion. This was not the case. So it took a while.
Yeah, I think it's great that in fairness, it did take a while, but I think they took that time to build its cult following for everyone to want and yearn for a Zoolander 2. So I think it was maybe smart on their part just to let it breathe for a few years. But should they have done this maybe 5 years ago? So there's a less amount of time in between the 2 years of gaps. Although I am glad that they came back and had fun with the same kind of characters, because I think over the years people just fell in love with Zoolander, was quoting the first movie, and to the point where it just built a following.
It did, absolutely. I mean, the video on demand market for it I'm sure has been huge. I mean, that's what literally made the movie. However, in the time, Paramount had right when Meet the Fockers or Meet the Parents was his next movie, and so the success of that, obviously Paramount went in a direction of that, which led to Meet the Fockers and so on and so forth. I think a total of 3 got made in that realm. So things just went a different way, and in about 2008, Stiller said, I've been trying to get Zoolander 2 up and going, and he had a few scripts, but nothing was quite there ready to be made yet. Or so he felt.
Yeah, and I think that's for Zoolander, that was something a passion project of his. It makes sense that he would want to have another idea for a sequel, but really perfect it to the way that he wanted to, if it's so close and near and dear to him.
Yeah, and what's been nice is obviously, like a lot of times, whenever a project like this isn't being made, I mean, it's not like Stiller sat behind and was trying to just make this. The fact that we got Tropic Thunder, which still to this day is just it's so memorable. I mean, that in itself, you know what I mean? So when you compare that, it's great. He's been able to do a lot of good stuff in that time.
Yeah, and I like how, Ben Stiller is still remaining relevant and with outrageous, over-the-top characters. That Zoolander's another one, Tropic Thunder, and then, Meet the Parents series. And I liked how he stays relevant with fun characters, and that he's so good at playing these type of characters that people wanted him back for Zoolander too. Yeah,
absolutely. And, it gave... The interesting part is, as we sort of head into writing, it gave... this entire team has sort of worked together for quite a bit. Justin and them, that's who he wrote, Justin Theroux, who he wrote Tropic Thunder with.
Yeah.
And so they kind of have this sensibility together. And so, it was in 2011 where they said, okay, we have a script and we can kind of now push forward with this.
Yeah, and Justin Theroux, because, he's so good friends with Ben Stiller and worked with Tropic Thunder again, yet at that time when they were making that film, Theroux told Ben Stiller, he was like, hey, if you ever are going to do Zoolander 2, I want to be a part of it. And then it was a year and a half later where Stiller was like, yeah, I think we're going to get this going. And he brought Theroux back.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, what is kind of interesting to note is whenever you make a movie like this, right, what made the first one so great was that there was so many pop culture references. And in an interview that I read, you know, he got asked about, like, how do you balance it, right? Do you put in an Uber joke? And he says, well, I don't know. I mean, because it's an Uber joke, but the joke is not really that far away, I think you just kind of have to have faith that something will remain funny if it's set up right. You know, certain jokes will, of course, stay, but there's the stuff in the first place that still plays. So isn't that, you know, in general, he's not quite giving an answer of how they were able to find that balance of
popular culture
versus just funny.
Yeah. And I did like the Uber joke, and there was also the running joke of Netflix, too, because Netflix wasn't as big back when the first movie came out, and now internet sensation, and everything's available online. So Netflix really does play a part. And that also goes with, you know, the video on demand kind of following as well. I thought that was smart.
Yeah, and, you know, you take someone... I mean, obviously, we'll talk about the cameos and things like that, but to open up the movie the way that they did with Justin Bieber, you know, that in itself is a pop culture reference, but then to take him and make his whole thing be taking a selfie, which is another pop culture reference. So
using Instagram, the Instagram app, which is now a popular culture type of thing.
Yeah, so, you know, you just kind of have... The nice part is, I think you just got to believe in it, right? And just make a good movie for that time. Don't worry about having it be... The more you think about consciously of trying to make it timeless, the more you're just going to dilute it.
I think it's more so maybe don't focus on being timeless, just be in the moment.
Yes, absolutely. You know, go ahead.
Oh, I did like how it did open up, because it's not just one person, but it's several different celebrities. So this is like a worldly thing, and that I think that's where they use the popular culture and Instagram as a good device to show this is a world problem that we really need to get everybody involved with.
Yeah, and you know, social media,
and which I find fantastic. Like, I really, again, we're big fans of the production, and, you know, watching this film, there were a lot of beautiful places they were in. It's one of the main things of Zoolander is, like, they're big on fashion, but it's just a high production value, just, like, the physical locations that they were in. And I think Rome is such a beautiful place, too. Like, I don't know if you've ever been there.
I've been, but I've not, like, been.
Been. Okay. Rome is beautiful. I went when I was young. But, so the scouting locations for Zoolander 2 back in 2014, 15, when they were in pre-production, they went to different places, and they actually crossed paths with Bond, the Bond film that was also filming in Rome too.
Spectre.
Yeah, Spectre. And actually, because they were filming at the same time, the production teams had to keep in contact with each other to make sure they weren't crossing paths during the filming, which I found fantastic.
That would have been hilarious to see Zoolander make an appearance in Spectre or vice versa.
Yeah, but some of the beautiful places that this film had, and forgive me if I mispronounce these places, but it's pretty interesting. If you're listening on iTunes, definitely check out the videos, because these are pretty beautiful places. The scouting location for Zoolander says, quote, "We had to find the bleeding edge architecture, the fascist architecture of the Mussolini era, the gilded and overwrought Baroque stuff." So that's the overall look they were going for. So this picture, if you're watching the video, the Palazzo de Civiltà Italiana served as the exterior of the Etats headquarters. And then the interior of the House of Etats was shot in the Palazzo dei Congressi, another Mussolini-era building, and Mann, who is the Jeff Mann, who's the production designer, his team restored the lobby for the Etats design chamber. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's beautiful. It's white and gorgeous. And
well, you know, these Zoolander's always been such there's the fashion side of it, but everything just has to look beautiful, right? So from a production standpoint, like they call it set dressing, and that's what you are literally doing. You have to make the set look good, and so it's just that interesting bond of fashion and making sure, you know, and I love the respect that they have to make everything look the way it did.
Yeah, it's also, you know, just the details, like the high-profile look also just reflects the high fashion design in the world that they live in.
That's what I wanted to say. You said it better than I.
Yeah. So the cavernous prison cell where Mugatu was being held was also created in the Palazzo dei Congressi. And the abandoned medical waste dump hotel that Hansel and Derek had to go to, for the filming, they actually had to put up and rig concrete sewer pipes above them that were suspended above like a conveyor belt runway when they were doing their fashion runway show. Mm-hmm. And that's where they dumped all that. What was it?
It wasn't
plums?
good.
It was
prunes.
Prunes, that's it, prunes. I knew you started with the P.
What I found, I loved... I love the Waste Hotel simply because it just became so irreverent. Like, we have organic Wi-Fi.
What?
And I love that. And what's funny too is that they don't know it, but it doesn't, because it just doesn't exist.
No, it doesn't. And I like the ironic and the irony of it because these guys, they're being literally thrust back into the fashion world. And the first place that they go to, it's a dump, a physical dump.
That is symbolically, that's very true.
And so the Baths of Caracalla, the tunnels beneath the actual historic site were used for filming for the main chambers there. The exterior of the orphanage was shot at the Villa, oh my goodness, Aldobrandini, and in a little small town outside of Rome. And that the interior of the orphanage was actually shot at another villa, in Villa dei Parisi. So that's where Derek Jr. In front of the orphanage, so that's where they filmed. I thought that was beautiful because that was outside, and it was. I just remember the orange texture and structure of it all, which looked pretty. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, and even during production, the mayor of Rome, because Bond and Zoolander were going out at the same time, he himself even tweeted out, "It's like, hey, look out for these guys." So they're in town filming.
And overall, the movie shot for 97 days, which for a movie for a comedy seems like a long time. And, you know, it's obviously because, again, the problems I had with it was that it went too Da Vinci-esque and wasn't, it became too actiony in that way. And so I could see it kind of taking the reason that took so long. And I thought it was an interesting choice in cinematographer. Daniel Mindell, who's worked on the latest Star Wars, the Star Trek movies, John Carter, Mission Impossible 3, and of course Tooth Fairy.
The Tooth Fairy, gotta throw that one in there.
But
it looked beautiful. It's like did. You can tell that they actually took their time filming this.
But I was, I can't blame the problems I had with it. I can't blame on him because because of the way it was written, the fact that it was an action-ish movie. I thought he was a right choice to deliver what they wanted for it. Mm-hmm. I was just hoping, whereas the first one, it's got kind of elements in its style, and it's got that MTV kind of quick, fast look to it. And
colorful.
Yeah, but overall, this one just seemed like it had more sweeping shots. And it just had those at certain points it looked more like Fast and the Furious than a comedy movie.
Yeah, and I think maybe there's just because they are in Rome, they're actually on location. I think maybe they just wanted to physically show how beautiful Rome is, so maybe that's where the production lies in there. And then also they are technically working with a minor, so maybe that might have slowed down some production as well.
Well, all the more reason, just put the camera down and let it, you know what I mean? Like, that's, the tracking shots and movement, that takes a long time to set up. That's the thing of, like, all right, put the thing on the dolly, and then, 2 hours later, you're like, all right, are we ready to shoot or what?
Yeah.
So.
But Rome was beautiful.
Rome is beautiful.
Yeah.
Not taking anything away from there. Not by any stretch of the imagination. All right. So, especially with a movie like this, we'd be remiss not to talk about wardrobe.
The high fashion, which I found fantastic. I personally am not really into fashion, but, watching this film.
But you are fashionable, so.
Oh, thanks. And looking, just at they actually got some like really great fashion designers a part of this. I mean, they had, Saint Laurent, Valentino, McQueen, Gucci. So like big, high-end fashions a part of this. So again, if you're watching the video, you can see all these photos as well.
Or download, like I said, download it in the description.
There you go. So Derek's pants, he's in Saint Laurent sequin jacket, and then he was also wearing Valentino pantsuits. And then for Hansel, his hippie kind of outfit, he was wearing a low sweater, and a necklace was involved with that too. And then for Valentina, I loved her jumpsuit. Valentina's jumpsuit was awesome. That bright
there wasn't anything I didn't like about her.
No, I mean, and plus, just Penelope wearing it was gorgeous. She wore a costume national jumpsuit and Christian Louboutin shoes. I mean, if you can afford Louboutins, then good on you. But the red really made it pop and memorable.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we kind of talked about Kristen Wiig in general, but. This is pulling from Dimitri's stuff. There's a quote: "We needed a special tent for Kristen to get dressed in right on set. Every outfit felt like it needed to be impossible to wear on any given day." So I thought that was fun. And in kind of the custom add-ons, they had a whole workshop set up in Rome with incredible craftsmen, cutters, and sewers building the majority. Of not only her costumes, but every costume in general. So I thought that was interesting.
Looking at this photo, this is white and black zebra type of printed. It actually looks comfortable.
Yeah.
Maybe not the neck, but
it looks like something Cruella de Vil would make.
Oh, definitely. And she's high fashion too.
That would have been a funny cameo if Cruella de Vil, like, as Cruella de Vil was there.
Those are stripes. Cruella like spots.
Well, that's how she wanted to get into spots, but she was doing stripes.
She was doing stripes.
That's right. I know my history.
And then Mugatu, he had a really fun clown-looking type of jumpsuit pants.
It was just in general. I mean, it was interesting. The whole outfit after outfit, like his outfits were outfits.
Yeah,
I don't know how to describe it, but obviously you've seen the movie, so you get what I'm saying with it, where you just take off layer after layer.
Yeah, it was definitely modeled after a clown's wardrobe, just with the color scheme and the
or the Russian doll.
Red. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where you just open up one and
it just pops out. Yeah.
Until you get smaller and smaller.
There you go. But like even the red boots and whatnot, you can definitely get a clown feel from that. So I think the fashion was really cool, and obviously there was a lot of fashion cameos, fashion designers.
As you would expect.
Yeah.
And that's what made it real, right? And so as we head into the marketing section of this entire thing, I mean, what's amazing is that you have a natural in to be able to market it. And the funny part is, like, they're sensitive where obviously they're making fun of something, but they've integrated that because, it's not like Zoolander, like a Marvel, like Avengers is marketed towards comic book readers, nerds, geeks, so on and so forth, right? Mm-hmm. But it's not like Zoolander or Zoolander 2 is like, oh, if you're a fashion person,
you should watch
this is your audience.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's just people who like comedy. So it's always interesting to me in that way how they can do it.
Yeah, I think fashion was just a component, something that was just in the film as well, let alone just the comedy. It's like it was just an added element.
Yes. So one of the things that they kind of this really got going on March 10th in 2015 at the fashion show in Paris.
The Valentina fashion show, which is actually, it was Nick Stevens, who is Ben Stiller's personal agent. That was his idea to promote the film by walking the runway with Hansel and Derek.
That's right. And by the way, Hansel's last name is McDonald, which I find hysterical. I never really realized
Hansel
that.
McDonald? What?
Anyway, let's play the clip. So here's Derek walking and is oh so serious. Like he looks, he is almost like a horse that comes out of a horse race. Like when the gates open, they have that speed walking out into the runway with that attitude.
And I love this. This was so brilliant to promote because they watched this runway before they actually started filming. It was literally a promotion to get people back in the mindset that, hey, these guys are coming back. So, yeah. And I love how they just walk it so in character. So brilliant. Absolutely.
So I think very enjoyable.
And Paris, that is a humongous Paris week. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen Devil Wears Prada, but like
my favorite movie.
That was like one of the biggest storylines of that film is like how big and prestigious the Paris Fashion Week is. It's ridiculous. And so the fact that they got to promote this movie in Paris during that, it's like
and what's great
crazy.
About, I mean, it works two ways, right? So obviously they got to promote Zoolander, but at the same time, the promotion of that brought it, like, yes, Paris Fashion Week is certainly phenomenal. I would have never checked out any of the footage whatsoever
right.
had it not been for them.
But, when that happened back in 2015, everyone knew about it. That's how I knew Zoolander 2 was coming back. That was like, hey, the Hansel and Derek, they're back again.
That's right.
I loved it.
And then, okay, so let's talk about the New York premiere.
Yeah, so Ben Stiller, Owen Wilson, and Penelope Cruz, and Will Ferrell at the New York premiere, they all walked the runway once again in character, which was a fantastic way to start their film.
So we have a clip of that, so why don't we play it?
I'm hard and I don't miss nothing.
So there's Mugatu
No pictures, please.
being himself.
But on these bastards, it makes me happy. It's tragic, I make it happen, and all your shacking.
And there's three characters: Hansel, Penelope Cruz, and Derek, of course.
Walking in very in character.
I need that money.
Just love how they embody it. Really embody it.
Look at
Just
Penelope.
go for it. She's gorgeous.
Yeah. Just attitude.
It's so great. It's so great. So that was at the New York Fashion Week as well, which just so happened to coincide with the premiere. That was definitely planned.
And what's fun is at the London premiere, they orchestrated a selfie, and it was with the world's largest selfie stick, coming in at about 28 feet, and it was a world record-breaking selfie.
Wow!
It included so many people, so I thought that was interesting.
It's just amazing that they can build a 28-foot selfie stick to really, really showcase narcissism.
But again, I think what's funny is they're all making fun of it.
Oh, for sure.
If you ask Ben Stiller if he's probably taken a selfie in his life,
oh yeah,
I'm sure the answer is no.
Yeah, I think they definitely did. And then also, I found the promotion and marketing for this film was fantastic. And like even on the Vogue cover, Derek Zoolander himself, not Ben Stiller, even though it was played by Ben Stiller, it was Derek Zoolander who was on the cover of Vogue, very in character.
And by the way, this we just talked about Deadpool on The Last Anatomy of Movie. So if you've seen that movie, which I can't imagine you haven't not seen it, we talked about the brilliance of that social media, and it's interesting just in general how advertising is going. Where it is about experiences, right? It's not just about TV ads and people telling you a message. It's really kind of becoming an immersive ad and really blending that reality and fiction to that ultra level. So you do get to wonder, wait, am I watching Ben Stiller, or is that, that's Ben Stiller as Derek Zoolander? Mm-hmm. And I really like that to an extent. And I only think the success of certainly Deadpool, but I don't know if you can necessarily call this one a success, but I think we're going to go that route a little bit more.
Yeah, I think the promotion was fantastic, and especially they really spread it out to the fashion world, which I think fashion is one of the first things that you'll always see spread throughout the media. So I think they really were smart in just promotion of that. Big high-end names and fashion designers are there, so now let's blend the two worlds together with film and fashion.
And what I liked, kind of one of the first teasers that came out, there was like that Stephen Hawking's voice.
Yeah.
And so what was funny is that you're kind of breaking the fourth wall a little bit there, and you're taking something that's so brilliant, right? Stephen Hawking, just this renowned genius, and the dumbest person in the history of man, pretty much, and blending the two together to create this campaign.
I thought that was brilliant too, because the promo for that, it was so visually intriguing too, with the visual effects and the awesome voiceover. You're like, wow, this is like an intelligent movie. I'm so excited. It sounds so smart. And literally, like the last second, you realize it's Derek Zoolander, and you're like, oh, it's one of the dumbest guys in the world. Shoot, I fell for it.
Yes, I thought it was brilliantly done. And one of the things to me that made the first movie so brilliant was the soundtrack. The Relax, Don't Do It, and everything, every piece of that music just works so well for the movie, that it became, some of it was even like comedic. It became just part of it, right? The iconic Walk Off with Beat It.
I beat it.
And so you knew that whatever music was going to be used for Zoolander 2 had to fit that same sort of formula, not even formula, but just had to have that same function.
Right. And I feel like the music in the first movie was so, on the nose, literal, that, Relax, Don't Do It is literally, brainwashing, so he can't control whatever he's doing. And then the Beat It is like beating each other. And I found that music back in the first one was so prevalent in maybe storytelling and character development that I didn't really feel it in this film. Like, Relax, Don't Do It wasn't as iconic in the second time around. It
wasn't meant to be as iconic, and obviously they play with a little bit of that. This one's by A$AP Rocky and Skrillex, so it's a remake of that. But we opened up with Here I Come. And I thought that was used very well in literal of like, here we come.
And the lyrics for that, we opened up to, the show with that song. It's about two guys that are coming back for it. Yeah. And here we go. Again, literally.
Yeah. So, Remove Your Mask is one of the songs by Wolf Mother. So you could, maybe that's a little bit less literal.
Yeah.
But still there nonetheless. So... I will say, I'm in terms of what made this movie not necessarily hit as much for me, it's certainly not the music. I would hold, perhaps the music in Zoolander 1 is a little bit more fitting, but for me there was no difference in that side of it.
I felt like the soundtrack for this one was more just a supplementary type of thing. It wasn't complimentary.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Doing the research for this, I found it interesting that the actual soundtrack for Zoolander 2 won't be released for another month. Like, a month after its initial release. So it'll be available to, like, the regular audience in, not to, put a timestamp, but, like, in March of 2016. Basically a month after this movie was released. Which is, I find, rare for movies to release a soundtrack so later on after its initial release.
Yeah, typically, sometimes soundtracks come out before.
Before, yeah.
The movie. I think that's pretty much from most of the ones that I can remember that we've done here on Anatomy, that's been the case.
Yeah, I wonder if it's rights or musical rights or just the fact that it's being released later.
I can't speak to it, unfortunately, so. All right, and then, so the last bit, unfortunately, we in some ways have to leave on a low. We got to talk about the box office and the reception, because unfortunately it didn't do so good.
I mean, I think also being away from the first one 15 years, I mean, that's a big gap between a sequel. Maybe it lost a good amount, or like people love the first one so much that people who watched this one, I feel like you really had to love the first one to watch the second one. And they had high expectations.
They had high expectations, but again, I think they're... I think the marketing would have worked had the movie been better. Right now, a lot of people... I think a lot of people were excited to see the movie, but then when they got... I mean, the cinema score is a C+, which is not...
Not good.
It's really... And that's people who wanted to... I mean, cinema score typically is, within the first 24-hour window that you're getting this. Mm-hmm. And so it's people who are actively seeking out to go see this movie. And when they're saying that that's a C+, it's not really good. And Rotten Tomatoes, 22%, score of 36%. So it's not like the difference is like, critics have it at 22 and audiences at 80.
Right.
There's a huge gap.
And that's fairly low. That's
quality.
Technically rotten, isn't it? Rotten.
Anything below a 60 is rotten, so this is
but I think
almost
also
40% lower than...
Yeah, I think for Rotten Tomatoes, it's also those are critics who wanted a full, fleshed-out story that was intelligent, and you're not going to get that with Zoolander.
Yeah, but even, hey, dude, where's my car? There's a brilliance in that absurdity. You know what I mean? And Zoolander had that absurdity... and I wish John Comfort was here because, he's a scriptwriter and he's a story expert, so he can kind of break... I wish he could really talk about the full science of those differences. Who knows? Maybe I could be wrong. Maybe I'll rewatch it and I'll love it. Maybe people will learn to love it on DVD, just like the first one. Prove me wrong, maybe. But right now, it doesn't look good.
No, it doesn't. I don't think... I mean, this film maybe wasn't like the best follow-up to the first one that everyone loved. But that won't take away from people still loving the first one and still loving these characters. I think maybe that's where I was disappointed. I wanted a story, and it fell flat and ridiculous for me.
What I haven't done yet is watch the first one now having the knowledge of this one. Because I can't undo this. I can't
undo those magnum looks at the end.
No, yeah, well, that... it just...
That's where... I think any audience member watching it had to suspend their disbelief and go with, okay, now there's supernatural element. They're literally levitating objects to stop the craziness.
But the supernatural element of it, like in the first one, it was so seldom. It was just that one moment,
and that was it.
You didn't need to explain it. But this is just like they're like. I don't know, they're Super Saiyans from Dragon Ball Z, like, activate the look.
Look. I did like the fact that, the first time Derek Zoolander tried to do it in this one, he failed. He failed, and he actually got hit, and his face got somewhat disfigured, which, kind of, maybe that was karma for disfiguring Hansel's. So maybe, and I liked how they established there was a failure, yet let's do it again, be even better, add Derek Jr. to it, and really just try to enhance the ridiculousness of the Magnum Blue Steel.
Yeah, so, I mean, it just kind of, that's where it really derailed for me, unfortunately. Like, had it just stuck to those things that I mentioned that I liked and that were good, I think it would have came out as a good movie. The other part of it, like, the fact that, if you really break it down, the fact that Bieber was, had knowledge of the Chosen One, they already knew who the Chosen One was. It's Derek Jr. So why are you chasing him in the damn first place?
I was actually glad that Justin Bieber got shot up. It reminded me of
many people were.
Yeah, it reminded me of his CSI appearance that he first got shot up a few years ago, and now he's getting shot up again. I think everyone can just laugh and clap at Justin Bieber getting killed once again. So
many people did. Again, I don't think there's anything more to say. I mean, you could blame it on the success of Deadpool, that it didn't get more than it should have, perhaps. But I think ultimately, I think people are correct in where they're at with Zoolander.
I can't disagree with them.
It's tough. And, I wanted it to be good, and like I said, there was just eliminate the parts that were just out of control.
It got weird, and I think that's where, like, maybe again, because I wanted the mature type of storyline, and that's maybe people can't believe that these guys have grown up, can actually be serious, so they're like, let's just keep being ridiculous, and like people love that instead.
But there's a difference between being ridiculous and just, as you mentioned, the supernatural. So
yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to just start a bash fest. Like I said, that no matter what, even though the movie isn't living up to expectations, I do commend them for trying. It is no easy task to make a movie, and so, you know.
I loved how mostly everyone came back.
Yeah.
Like, this was a passion project. These guys love these characters so much that they, made a whole nother film out of it because people wanted it.
Well, they certainly wanted it.
They certainly wanted it, yeah.
And I, the sad part is I think the crowd did too. I really think if the story was better, I really think it could have been a great success. And as we mentioned, Ben Stiller, at the end of the day, he's not going to be judged for this.
No.
At least to me, he's got such a great body of work that, again, over 50 films, he'll be all right. Everyone makes a bad movie, unfortunately, and this is just that bad movie for me.
This wasn't one of his best movies, that's for sure.
No, it was not. So, but anyway, any last thoughts for you, Marisa, before we start to wrap out?
Overall, I really, just enjoyed the ride. These guys are fun to watch. They really are, despite how stupid they are. I liked the first one. I don't know if I would buy this one on DVD, in all honesty. I might actually watch it again, though.
I do want to, now that I know what it is, maybe I'll enjoy it. Like I said, I mean, it will be interesting to track it to see if it will become like the first one where after a certain point people will just get into it. Who knows?
You love it the more times you watch it.
Maybe.
So it was a fun movie.
So, and you know what? To your point, Marisa, I did enjoy watching Hansel and Derek, and I thought that was the strength because they weren't being anything more than that. They were just having fun, and if that's all it was, it would have been great. They just had too many other things. But anyway, thank you guys for joining us on another Anatomy of a Movie. Follow us here at The Popcorn Talk on Twitter, Instagram, or Movie Anatomy on Twitter and Instagram for this particular show. Also, follow Dimitri at DMovies1701. Even though he couldn't be a part of this, feel free to tweet him. And I'm sure he'll comment with you guys in the comments section, so feel free to throw out specific questions for him of what he thought about the movie. He'd love to talk with you guys. Marisa, where can people find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Serafini TV.
And I was saving this joke for the end, and I hope it doesn't come in poor taste, but I just wish that everyone listened to this song before doing the movie and they would have relaxed. Unfortunately not done it. But, it gave us something to talk about. We've got other movies coming up, so feel free to check back in. We have a whole roster of movies in our catalog that you can check out. As mentioned earlier in the show, Deadpool is one that we just did. Hail Caesar's very recent, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, and so on and so forth. We've got Risen, we've got Race, so we've got that, and of course Batman v Superman in a couple of weeks after that, and Civil War, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles down the line. I'm trying Suicide Squad. So that's just what comes to mind, and years down the line we've got Jurassic World Part 2. So keep checking back in. We'll see you next time on Anatomy of a Movie. Bye for now.
Producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the rest of the Anatomy of a Movie staff, we would like to thank you for listening and subscribing to the show. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email or tweet us. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been Anatomy of a Movie. The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.